The worst WWE injuries of 2024. Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins has had a difficult 2024. Despite main eventing Night 1 at WrestleMania 40, Rollins walked into the show injured, and he deserves a ton of praise for being able to push through 2 matches across the weekend without a hitch. During a world title match against Jinder Mahal at the start of the calendar year, Rollins would injure his knee, and the injury in question occurred during a moonsault attempt from Rollins. Rollins would suffer a grade 2 MCL tear and a partial torn meniscus, which put him out of action, and knowing Rollins' prior history with knee injuries, this must have been an extremely scary injury for the talented star. Rhea Ripley. Now, in pro wrestling, not every injury is going to occur in the actual ring. Sometimes injuries can occur in backstage segments, and this was the case with Rhea Ripley following WrestleMania 40. During a backstage confrontation with Liv Morgan, Ripley would be thrown into the wall, and it was apparent that Ripley had been legitimately hurt. Now, it turned out that Ripley had injured her AC joint where her collarbone and right shoulder connect, and the injury was so severe that she was forced to surrender her women's world title. Of course, this wouldn't be the only injury Ripley would suffer in 2024, as late in the calendar year she would suffer a fractured orbital socket, and this forced Ripley to wear a protective mask. Ripley would embrace this new appearance, and on the road to 2024 Survivor Series War Games show, Ripley would debut a custom protective mask. A mask that was designed by Jason Baker, who also did the Shinsuke Nakamura mask and The Fiends. Shotzi. Now, an ACL tear is one of the worst injuries a wrestler can suffer. When it comes to Shotzi, all it took was a simple jump to put her on the shelf. On an episode of NXT television, Shotzi was wrestling Lara Valkyria, and Shotzi would attempt a DDT-style move where she would DDT Valkyria through the ropes onto the apron. The problem was that when Shotzi jumped down, her knee shattered and she immediately fell to the ground. The match was thankfully called off. However, WWE was said to be extremely concerned with the injury. After many months now, Shotzi has returned to action, appearing on NXT television, making the save for Tatum Paxley and Gigi Dolan. CM Punk. Now, heading into the 2024 Rumble match, CM Punk was the odds-on favorite to win the match. Unfortunately, Punk didn't walk out with the Rumble victory, and he left the match on the injured list. Punk would injure himself following a Future Shock DDT from Drew McIntyre, and Punk would come away with torn triceps, and amazingly, Punk even finished the match and wasn't even exactly clear that he was even hurt until reports surfaced the next day. Due to the nature of Punk's injury, it ultimately meant that the former WWE champion was forced to miss WrestleMania 40. Whilst Punk getting injured was a huge blow for fans and WWE, it did add a great element of realism to the feud between Punk and McIntyre, and it was certainly a factor in the feud being so celebrated by fans. Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed put in a stellar performance at this year's Survivor Series War Games match. However, not everything went according to plan during the match, as when Bronson Reed went up to dive off the top of the cage, he sustained an injury upon landing through the table. WWE showed slow motion of the footage, and even though it wasn't evident during the PLE, he suffered a broken foot. Now, fortunately, Big Bronson Reed has undergone surgery for the repair of his foot. However, the bad news is that most likely Reed will be missing WrestleMania 41. Austin Theory. At the start of 2024, Austin Theory was so banged up following a botched Spanish Fly that he decided to retire the move indefinitely. Theory was wrestling Carmelo Hayes, and Theory managed to spike himself into the mat. This botch looked horrific, and there was grave concern that Theory had just broken his neck on live television. Thankfully, Theory just came away with a few knocks to the face, but this match could have ended in tragedy. Theory would reflect on the botch while speaking to West Sport, and this is what the former Money in the Bank holder had to say. In this scenario with Carmelo Hayes, I'm going for a move I did plenty of times. It just so happens as we're going through the rotation, the back of his foot hits the top rope, so all of the momentum of us rotating, when his foot hits, it takes us straight down. Just based off the video, it looks insane. To be honest, after that, I seriously could have been paralyzed, or my career could have been done. I could have been seriously hurt, broke my neck, there's so many factors. A Theory would go on to reveal that as he came down for the landing, he was able to turn his head. But luckily, as we came down, I let go to catch myself, and I turned my head all the way to the left, and when we landed, the back of his head hit my face pretty hard. But when we were laying there, I was fine. I didn't feel rocked or lost or that feeling of, oh, what's going on? I felt fine. But at the same time too, that's such a scary moment, especially when you're out there and something goes wrong and doesn't feel right. Seeing the video footage back of myself upside down literally on the top of my head, wow. Very grateful for that, and that move is retired for Austin Theory. The move itself is indeed high risk, and Theory is well within his rights to retire the move if he believes it has the potential to injure him or his opponents. Braun Strowman. One of the best TV matches of 2024 was a last monster standing match between Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed. What made the match even more notable was the fact that Strowman was injured in a major way just 2 minutes in, and he continued the match and fulfilled every planned spot. Strowman would suffer a torn groin in the match, and upon rewatching it, it's obvious that Strowman is in immense pain, yet the fact he pushed through is a testament to his willpower and determination. AJ Styles. Our fans were delighted when AJ Styles made his triumphant return to WWE television, yet it all went wrong when Styles was injured in a SmackDown match against Carmelo Hayes. The original plan for the match was to create a fake injury angle, however, in an unfortunate plot twist, Styles managed to legitimately injure himself. During a move, Hayes would land on Styles' lower leg, and this led to the wrestling legend suffering a legitimate sprain. According to reports, Styles was said to be furious with getting injured, which is completely understandable. Kairi Sane. When a wrestler jumps from the top rope to the outside, it's vital that the opponent or opponents catch them so they don't get hurt. Kairi Sane took to the sky during a match on Raw, and the idea behind the spot was that Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair would safely catch her. However, this spot went badly wrong as Belair was the only one who made an attempt to catch Sane. It didn't help that Sane completely overshot the move, so her face bounced right off the table. The botch was alarming to say the very least, and it was only a matter of seconds before Sane's eye region would be bloody. The laceration over Sane's eye was so deep that she required stitches, but thankfully, she was able to return to in-ring competition relatively quickly. Damian Priest. Now, 2024 saw Damian Priest have a well-received world title run that definitely over-delivered in all aspects. Priest had some significant and high-profile matches as world champion, including a featured main event against Drew McIntyre at Clash at the Castle. Whilst the match was a solid main event, there was a botch in the match which led to Priest hobbling around like he had just broken his foot. Priest would attempt to dive over the ropes, yet awkwardly he got tangled. Thankfully, Priest was able to free himself, but this spot could have ended badly. With that being said, the botch was enough to cause short-term damage to his foot, and Priest wouldn't wrestle on TV for an entire month, which was likely a precautionary measure. But before we get into the last one, let's have an honorable mention of Dominic Mysterio. Now, out of nowhere on Raw in April, Dominic Mysterio began to wear a sling, and it was then revealed that Mysterio was out of action with an injury to his elbow. It's believed that the injury occurred during a match with Andrade on Raw, and it's likely that the injury occurred during a Three Amigos spot. According to Mysterio, the injury was a slight tear in his Tommy John ligament. This is a type of injury that is traditionally associated with the world of baseball and is said to be rare for the pro wrestling industry. Dirty Dom would make a quick recovery, and it wasn't before long that one of WWE's brightest young talents was back to wrestling on a full-time basis. And Drew McIntyre. The universally praised feud between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk would come to an end at Bad Blood. The two would collide in a brutal Hell in a Cell match, and the match received acclaim for pushing the boundaries of a modern-day cell match, and some are even calling it one of the greatest cell matches of all time. The match had its fair share of bloodshed, and one spot saw McIntyre take a toolbox shot to the skull, and this led to McIntyre bleeding extensively. McIntyre was literally covered in blood, and WWE fans hadn't seen this kind of visual since the Ruthless Aggression era. McIntyre would state that he required 16 stitches to close up the wound, and WWE would share official images of McIntyre's injury, which certainly shouldn't have been seen with those with sensitive stomachs. But there you have it, folks, the worst WWE injuries of 2024. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.